Welcome everyone to this afternoon's webcast about converting shapefiles to a Civil 3D surface. My name is Scott Mizak from obviously CAD Technology Center. Glad everyone could make it. Today's topic, converting a shapefile to a Civil 3D surface. Oops. So today we're going to learn the steps to take contour shapefile and convert it into a Civil 3D surface. Some of the key terms you're going to hear: map import, topology, query, and then obviously a surface from GIS. So let's start with the first step, and that's doing a map import. So if I have a shapefile, everyone knows that you can do a map import. So you click map import, plug in the input layer that is going to come on the drawing layer, and then you can add an object data table to it by clicking in here. So when it comes in, it'll have a line, but it'll have an object data table attached to it. So if it's a contour line, it's going to have data that should represent the elevation. Spatial filter, we should all know that. I can do none, so it'll bring in the entire shapefile. Current displaced, whatever I'm zoomed in at, or define a window. So if I only want to bring in a specific area, I can define it by a window. And with contours, the import polygons as close polylines, not necessary, but we do know that if we were talking about maybe parcel lines, that would be one good thing to use. And so when I do a map import, the elevation data is not transferred automatically from the table to the geometry of the object. Excuse me. So when I bring in contour shapefile as just polylines, if I click on one, if I look at the geometry, the elevation is set to 0. And that's what we want to do, is we want to be able to get that elevation from 0 to its proper. And to do that, we need to pull the data from the object data table up to the geometry. And I call it topology, but what we need to do is in map or in the planning analysis tab, and then in the task pane, we'll go to the map explorer tab, and then we'll actually attach. So what we'll do is we'll take that original drawing, and we'll call it drawing A, and we'll bring it in and we'll save it. Make sure we have a coordinate system assigned. And then what we'll do is we'll open up a new drawing, drawing B, and we will attach drawing A to drawing B. And what you have to do is to attach it, it'll give you to select drawing to attach, and what you have is look in. And right now it's looking in directly at my C drive, and that is it, top of my C drive. So if I need to add another directory, I'll come in and I'll click this icon right here, and then I'll path and I'll call another drive, like right here I have, it's called webinar, and what that webinar would do is it'll actually path to a specific location on my D drive, and you can see it right there, D drive webinars and then GIS, and under there I have two files, 151216 and 151119. So it will only find things specifically in that location. So it's kind of like data shortcuts and the working folder. It will only go out to this one specific location. So I may have 25 different data shortcuts, but only one in that folder. I have to path to that particular spot. The difference between this and data shortcuts is I have the ability to actually have multiples in here, so I can just quickly flip. Makes it a little bit easier. So once I've gone in and I've found my drawing A, and then I'll go ahead and say OK. And then what I need to do is you actually see that I have a drawing in there. And what I need to do is under the query library, current query, I need to define a query. Come in, location. I have and or not. Right now I just want to worry about the location. And when I click on location, it will open up another dialog box for a location condition. I want boundary type. I want all. So I want to take everything within this drawing. Say OK. brings me back to the screen, so I now see location all up in the current query. But what I want to do now is I want to do alter properties. What this will allow me to do is it will allow me to take properties from one spot and put it into another spot. So I'll click alter properties and I'll say, now that it's open, set property alterations. Select property, I want elevation. So I'll select elevation and then I'll come down and I'll hit expression. And when I hit expression, it will actually open up standard object data table, expression dialog box here. I'll expand object data, I'll expand elevation contours, and I'll select elevations. And then I'll say OK. What this does is it will pull the information from the object data table for elevation, and it'll actually put it in the geometry elevation. From there, I'll say OK in the expressions, and then bring me back to the main screen right here. I'll make sure that my query mode is in draw, and then I will execute the query. And from that point, it will come in, and now when I click on the line, it will actually have an elevation of 938, or whatever elevation was assigned to that object data. That's the longer way. There is an easier way if the data is already known ahead of time. If it's kind of generic contours, you might have a little issues doing it this way. But in Civil 3D, I have the ability to simply just create a surface. Oh, sorry. Let me finish up. Create a surface. And then what I can do is I can add those contours either as a break line or actually as a, just add contours. So now I have all those lines in there. Now I just add them to a surface that already exists. So I created a surface called Webinar 1216, and then I either just right-clicked, add lines as break lines, or I just added contours. Either way works. I wouldn't say that there's a better, one way is better than the other. Next is actually taking a surface from GIS within Civil 3D. Up on the Home tab, there is Surfaces, and there is actually Create Surface from GIS Data. From there, it opens up Object Options, Surface, give it a name, give it a style, what layer, rendering material. Everything's self-explanatory there. Go ahead and click Next. Here you have a couple options. Do you want an ARC SDE, an Oracle, or a shapefile? I personally deal with shapefiles the majority of my time. I know larger companies, they might deal with Oracle or ARC SDE. So in this example that I'm going to do later on, I am going to do just a shapefile. So shape, path to it. So I went out and I found a contour shapefile for the city of Rosemont in Dakota County. Funny part is you got to log in. You log in and you say okay. You don't even have to put any credentials in, and it will bring you to elevations, contours. It shows you what you're going to bring in. I check what I want to bring in. I have the ability to change the schema. I'll leave it as is. I'll go ahead and say next. What a lot of people do is they'll actually say finish right here, and that's where you can run into the problems with it. But you got to make sure that you hit next right there. Then when you hit next, you have define area of interest, polygon, window, fence, circle. Same thing as with the object data. I can narrow down the amount of shape, the amount of data that comes in based off of polygon, my current window, fence, or circle. In my case, I'm going to bring everything in at once. It's not that big of a file, so I'll just uncheck define area of interest, so it's going to bring in everything. And then I don't have the inside or crossing as an option. Hit next. And here's the key when it comes to the civil side. I have GIS fields. I have 5 columns in there. What do I want to make what? So in the columns of the shapefile, there is a column called elevation. Well, what I did was I clicked right in the Civil 3D properties, and I said that this is the elevation. So I have the ability to pull information from the shapefile and put it in whatever location I want when it comes to the Civil 3D properties. So this is the key part to automatically bring in the shapefile and have it give me a proper surface. So at that point, now I can say finish, and when it's done, I zoomed in right next to the river, and I can see the surface that it built. I see the river down in here pretty flat, and then I got the banks, the shores around there, and I got some hills and all that. So that's how it is when you want to bring the stuff in from Civil directly in. So I'm going to go ahead and demo, do what I'm show what I'm talking about. So I jumped ahead a little bit here. I brought in an import. I did a map import of some of a shapefile of contours for Dakota County and for Rosemont. If I look at the properties, I see that there is no elevations in here. I have an elevation in here in the object data table, but not for the elevation. So if I build a surface out of this, it's going to be flat. It's going to be zeroed out. So what I need to do is I need to come in and I need to save this drawing. So webinar 15, 12, 16. I'm going to come in and open a new one. And, oops, I'm not even going to open. I'm just going to say new. Use that template. I'll quickly come in and assign Dakota County to it. U.S. survey foot. Save it. Call it today. Save. Now what I need to do is, again, go into the Map Explorer, attach a drawing, and switch to my other directory, and there is that drawing, 15, 12, 16. I'm going to say Add. I'm going to say OK. I've now got the ability to add a current query. I'm going to say Define. I'm going to go Location and say All and say OK. I'm going to switch this to Draw right now, and then I'm going to go to Alter Properties. From there, Elevation, Expression. Where is my object data table? Cancel. Oh, let me do this. Let me close out of that. Define query. Location all. Say OK. Alter query. Elevation. Expression. Uh-oh, that's not good. It's supposed to give me my object data table. Why did it not give me my object data table? Cancel. Let me close this out. Let me start over. New, because now that I have my drawing closed, I'm set to assign Dakota. Attach webinar. That one, add, OK. Define location, all, OK. Alter properties, elevation, expression. There we go. It just didn't like the fact that I probably had the drawing open ahead of time. So I'm going to say elevation. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say add, puts that up in there, say OK. I'm going to say draw, and I'm going to say execute query. almost 4,500 objects were queried. Zoom extents. Here is my aerial image behind there. Draw order, send to back. Here is my contours now, and now when I look at it, I have the ability to see that it has an elevation of 936. So from here, I would, well, because I did this directly in Map, I would save the drawing and then open it up in Civil 3D and then create a surface, whether it be from break lines or from contours. So I'm going to quickly say save, and we're going to call this today number 2. That's fine. I'm going to close out of that, close out of Map because I'm now done in Map, and I'm going to jump into Civil, and I'm going to say open, and I'm going to open up today 2. We'll say no this time. Prospector, create a brand new surface, you leave it as defaults. Again, one issue about starting it in Map is that you don't have your styles in there, so I will use the standard style naming. Say OK. Quickly jump into properties. For standard display, turn on major minor. Say apply. Say OK. Say OK. Expand definitions, and here's where I can say add, and I'll just call it shapefile. Say OK, and then select all. Let it think a little bit. Had to process almost 4,500 lines, so it's going to take a couple seconds. There we go. Close out of that. There we go. Surface, select, object viewer. There is my surface. The other way, I don't want to call it simpler way, but the way that a lot of people have the ability working directly in Civil can do it is we'll open the Civil Imperial template by default. Going to quickly give it Dakota County coordinates. Shouldn't really matter. US foot, say OK, is to be able to come into Home, Surfaces, and then create surface from GIS data. Surface, give it a name, give it a style, what layer, what block. For material, say next. Again, shapefile. I'm going to path out. I have 1 foot contours, 10 foot contours. I'm going to do 10 foot just because it'll speed things up a little bit, not as clumsy. Again, got to log in. Click on elevation contours. That's what I want to bring in. It knows the coordinate system that came in. Again, the default schema. Shapefiles take default. If you did the ArcSDE or the Oracle, you have different schema capabilities. Again, don't say finish here, but actually say next. Don't define by polygon, window, fence. I want to bring everything in at once. So I'll say don't define by area. Next. And now here it will pull all the data from the shapefile, elevation, contour type, temp, mod, shape, length, geometry. And I want to say that that is elevation. Match elevation for elevation. I can say that. Can't duplicate, but that is all that there is the elevation for what I need. And at this point, I'll just go ahead and say finish. let it think a little bit. It struggled a little bit when it was creating that surface. So we'll see how long this takes, because this is going to be not just the whole area, or not just a small segment, but this will be the entire area. Prospector, surfaces, there's the one I just created. Zoom, comma, extents. Oops. Zoom, extents. There's my surface again. Look at it in Object Viewer. And there is the surface. Here is the river, here's the shoreline, and such. So those are the two ways that you can take a shapefile and bring it into Civil 3D. If you don't have Civil 3D and you got to do map, that was the first way. If you do have Civil 3D, that way is obviously a lot quicker, a little bit easier. Just remember to go through all 4 steps, not stop at 2. That way you're able to apply data, because if you don't apply that elevations from the shape to elevations in the geometry, you will get a flat surface.